Staying with News at Prime tonight, the departure of dozens of Nigerians from OR Tambo International Airport has been delayed. This is amidst administrative processes at immigration. About 600 Nigerians were expected to leave the country today and tomorrow. And some of those who are leaving the country say they've been living in fear following the attacks that have taken place in the last couple of weeks.
We have a process that we followed, and the process is that being the organization, the apex body, we have a data of almost all the Nigerians that are resident in South Africa that are members of the association. So we sent out messages through our forums and through our other means to ensure that the information gets to them. So, and I'm sure that we are able to get through to all the provinces in South Africa, and they are fully represented. We have all the provinces here. People, all Nigerians from provinces are here, and as you can see, we've been calling names based on that. So they are actually boarding the buses to go to the airports. It is insecurity. They feel insecure. They feel they are unsafe, and probably some of them have been affected by the looting and arson that followed. Probably their properties had been destroyed. So, like, I have a family here whose means of livelihood had been completely destroyed. So they happen to be among the people that are going to Nigeria today. I don't think that these ones that are going to come back. That is because, they have actually expressed their desire to leave. And that is voluntary, because they felt that they have probably not longer, happy staying here because of what they have experienced, xenophobia and all that you can imagine that is associated with it.
I feel so sad. I feel so sad because this thing just came suddenly. Like myself, my shop was burnt in Julius, so I have no means of livelihood. So leaving my family here is going to be disastrous. So I decided to let them go. And while I'm staying back, it's not that I'm staying for long. I need to get myself, put things in order. I have to join them as soon as possible. The situation as it is now, we are no longer welcome here. Our South African brothers said that they don't want us here, so that's why we're going.
I never had the intention of going, not until like 3 months back, when I discovered that the rate in which people are dying in this country, and most especially foreigners, because my greatest experience in life, I found it here in South Africa, because it happened last year anyway. I'm just 1 year in this country. I turned 1 year August, but I can't bear it anymore. This scar on my head, I got it here. They were trying to rob me. I thought I was still back home. I was like, no one was trying to help me defend myself. I had to defend myself. I thought I was doing the right thing. Not until I got this thing. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital. Everyone thought I was dead. Even the doctor said, hey, my man, your skin is white now. You just have to ship this guy away from me. This guy is no more. Not until I revived back to life. So the criminality here is too much.
The Sisonke People's Forum is laying the blame for the recent turmoil in the country on social ills. The group says rising crime levels, a lack of housing and drug abuse are to blame. Let's discuss the role of drugs then in the mayhem that we've seen in the streets. Joining me tonight is the City of Johannesburg's Group Forensic and Investigation Service Units, Sindane and Addiction Counsellor Gareth Carter. Let me thank you both, gentlemen, for your time this evening. Lucky, let's perhaps begin with the lay of the land. We've seen many informal traders, small to medium enterprises who operate within the Johannesburg CBD coming to tell us about the operation of drug dens within the city that lend themselves then to the kind of violence that we've seen as a means and a way of people crying out. So give us, I think, a more factual analysis of what you've been able to find in those buildings and around those businesses.
Thank you for having me, Cathy. It's so unfortunate that in the crime prevention operations that we conduct with the South African Police Service, JMPD, and other various stakeholders, mostly what we find is drug dealers. Just the other day, we conducted an operation on Monday. At 6 buildings in the inner city, we arrested 2 people for dealing in drugs. So it's a huge problem. These buildings that we raid on a weekly basis, we can safely say that are used as crime havens, and people use them drug dealers use them to sell their drugs in those buildings. That's what you find.
That some of those buildings have become crime havens, I think it's common cause now. But to what extent do you find the link between then how some of those operating as drug dens translates to some of those who are hawkers or informal traders in the city and are running their business? Is there a direct link there?
I can't really say if there is a direct link between those that are operating in those buildings and those that are trading in the streets, because our mandate is to deal with those that are trading in those buildings. What we do is to try and clean the city, but then we have from time to time colleagues that we conduct these operations with who would search businesses or those that trade around those buildings that we go to. And sometimes we do find that people pretend to be selling sweets or selling veggies, but then that be selling drugs.
And
so what they
sure,
do,
sure.
Sorry to step, but then what we most find, in most cases what we find, before we raid a property, as we approach, you'd find that the precinct is clean, people run away. So we're not sure whether they get tip-offs from people that we going to come and raid those places. You'd only find people inside the buildings, but in the vicinity, around the vicinity of those buildings, you won't find anyone.
Gareth, drugs are big money in South Africa. We recently had a report in April on the rise of heroin and its use. And of course, it's one of those drugs that researchers, and I imagine people like yourself, would say it might be known as heroin, but of course in the streets, you find traces of it in Nyawupe, in Unga. So give us a little bit then of that context of the use of heroin in the country and what's really driving its increase.
Nyope and the other one that you mentioned are essentially just heroin mixed in with dacha. So it's a cheaper way to smoke because most people can't afford a good proper hit of the heroin, so they mix the nyope in with the pot. South Africa's in some trouble. It looks like we're going to escape the Moody's downgrade. Femicide is 5 times the world norm. Drug and alcohol abuse is rife. We just ranked last out of 151 countries on a health index. We were rated as the unhealthiest country in the world. And that's ranked on happiness, depression, alcohol and nicotine use, obesity, lack of exercise, and government spending on healthcare. Addiction's a huge problem. The state cannot cope with the patients that need help, and something's got to be done to turn it around.
Why does the drug industry continue to thrive as much as it does?
Well, then man's need for intoxication is as old as mankind itself. I mean, drugs have been used in religious ceremonies for centuries. People become addicted. You're roughly looking, there's no accurate data in this country. I often hear a misquoted statistic that drug abuse in South Africa is twice the world norm, but there's no accurate data to back that up. We know it's rife, we know it's problematic, and people do become addicted around the world.
Sure.
Here, I think the social ills and our history, the trauma, the post-traumatic stress, I mean, we really have a difficult time at the moment. I think that all contributes towards people using drugs.
Lucky, have you found a connection between drug use and the violence that then takes place, I suppose, as a whole in the Johannesburg city centre, not necessarily directly the violence that we've seen in the recent weeks?
Not really. In the operations that we've conducted, you find people coming to us, because one of the departments that we take with to our crime prevention operations is the social development department. People will come to us and say, can you please assist? I've been taking Nyawupe for years. My boyfriend brought me here in town. I'm relating a story of one girl who approached us to say she left a granny in the Val. Can we help? And then that's where social development also comes in. and assist. I've never seen any form of violence from them, but we get them asking for help from us.
Gareth, is there enough support for people in the country who are struggling with substance abuse, who are addicted from a state perspective?
No, there's just simply not enough spending on healthcare across the board, and particularly around addictions. The state resources are just swamped and overwhelmed, and I think the quality of care is not as good as if you go private, but not many people are on, I think about 15% of the country is on a medical aid, and the medical aid will pay for 3 weeks of inpatient rehab. If you're not on the medical aid, you know, most people don't have 30, 40, 50 grand to put down to pay for a month as an inpatient.
Sure. Where does that leave people then?
On the streets, desperate, alone, involved in crime, struggling.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in tonight and giving us that perspective. Certainly a different picture, a different element to the story that we've been covering for you in recent weeks. Plenty of food for thought, and I imagine lots of work then still to be done in addressing many of the problems that we're witnessing unfold. So we'll continue with our bulletin after the short break. Do stay with us.